What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are talking fuel filters, like this Hengst filter here that look like I'm stabbing my eye with. Picked this up off of FCP Euro. We are going to be installing it or replacing the old one on this Volkswagen Jetta here with the 2.5 liter. This is going to transfer over to a lot of Volkswagens and Audis. So the fuel filter replacement is typically the same on most of their gasoline engines. Gasoline engine, Volkswagen, Audi, fuel filter replacement. Let's get it done. Alright, so the first step is obviously going to be to get the car off the ground and elevated so you have enough room to work on it. You can see I've got it sitting here up on the jack stands. I did pull the passenger side rear wheel off. Having the wheel off is just going to make it easier. Obviously, if you're doing this on the garage on jack stands, you got to be able to crawl underneath the car and get to it. So having the wheel off just gives you that little extra space to work. We are going to be working just under the passenger rear door, and the filter's pretty accessible right there. Before we get under the car, the first thing you got to do is bleed the pressure in the fuel system, because if you've noticed, every time you open your door, it primes the fuel pump. So we got to bleed the pressure on both sides of the pump. For the back side of the pump, or for tank side, you can just open the fuel door and open your fuel cap. That'll relieve any pressure on that side. For the front side, you're going to have to relieve pressure at the fuel rail. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to pull the fuse for the fuel pump so the fuel pump stops running. You're going to want a set of interior tools. We're right inside the driver door here. This panel right here is going to come off. You have a fuse panel behind that. Go to your owner's manual, find out which fuse is for you. I'll show you which one it is on this Mark V with the 2.5 liter. It may or may not be the same for whatever vehicle you're working on. And you're going to have a variety of different fuses based on what model and level your vehicle is. This is the one in mine. So we are going to pull a fuse, and it should be that 15 amp fuse there in my situation. Well, that clearly worked. Car wouldn't even start, so we gave it a couple cranks. Now we're gonna head to the engine side and bleed the fuel rail. And you are messing with fuel, which is very hazardous to your health, so always make sure you wear the proper protection. Put some safety glasses on. If you've got the full face with the side coverings and anything, that would be best, but always make sure you have something blocking it from your eyes. That way you're not getting fuel in your, your visual specs that you wear on your face full time, because they're kind of important. Wear protection, be safe. I'm not responsible if you screw yourself up or your car, just so you know, be smart. So we're up here in the engine bay. You can see the fuel rail here. This little valve here is a Schrader valve, just off the end of the fuel rail. Basically, same thing you have on your bike tires, unless you have Presta valves, because you're special. So we've got a small flathead screwdriver here and some towels, because there is going to be some fuel that comes out of this, so you do want to be careful. Hence the eye protection, hence the towels to soak it up. We don't want to be spraying it all over everything. You can kind of just cover it up. We kind of bled some pressure when we ran the engine, or attempted to run the engine, so that shouldn't be too bad, but definitely try to keep it covered up and just slowly depress the valve. That'll bleed off any extra fuel and pressure that's in there. You can see on the towel there, that's all I got out. I didn't have a big giant stream spraying out at me. Gonna put the cap back on, because we never want to lose that. Keeps all the debris out of there, keeps that valve working, that way we don't have a fuel leak. All right, so we're under the car now. This is your filter here. Got two lines going in, one coming out. You can see on these lines that are going in, you see the different colored areas. So you got the black, the blue, and then on this side, it's actually gonna be on the top side. Basically, you have to push those in, slide the line off. So this is where the tricky part of doing the fuel line is, and you definitely want to be careful with these. If you break the connection here, you are replacing a bunch of line. You can't just replace the connector. So depending on how long your fuel filter's been in the car, it might give you some trouble. But here's a better look at those clips. These ones are contrasted well with the white clip on the black plug. Similar type setup here. You got to push that in. It's basically going to release the clamp, and then you can slide the hose off. This should be a Phillips up in here, and then you can just undo the clamp here, take the old filter out, put the new one in, make sure it's lined up. I do have my drain pan here. You're going to want something that's fuel safe. You are going to drip some fuel, but we're going to work on getting these clips off. Hopefully they're not too much of a pain. This car here's got about 176,000 miles on it, and I highly doubt that fuel filter has ever been changed. I haven't changed it before, and I doubt the previous owner changed it. Hear it click, you can see it's pushed up now. Be able to get the line off like that, hopefully without getting a bunch of fuel all over the camera. Yeah, that one came off a lot easier. Always fun when you got all the camera equipment back down here snugged up when you're trying to do all this, trying to keep everything protected at once. Those ones are disconnected. The front one, the outlet up here, is the one that can typically be a little bit more of a pain, just because the connector, you're not pushing up from the bottom, you're pressing down from the top. So you got to use, if you can get in there with the flathead or your fingers, that's fine, but that's typically where like a pick like this is going to come in handy, because you can get on top of it and pull down. Just make sure you're on the proper part of the connection, that way you're not damaging the line, because like I said, you don't want to do that. Well, I stand corrected. Maybe this fuel filter has been done in this car's lifetime, because that came off a lot easier than expected. Of course, the miles it has in Arizona are a lot easier than something, say, back east where you're getting a lot of snow and stuff, which can gunk all this up. So those are all loose and able to slide off now. So I'm just gonna let those sit there, and it may or may not be easier at any point during this process to kind of disconnect the parking brake line from this hook. That way you have a little bit more room to move it around and get in here, because this does kind of sit right on top of the line there. It's fun on jack stands because you're working like right around the jack stand here. Obviously you're going to have fuel in the filter still. And I will mention right now that we have this out and we're looking at it. It will be stamped with a pressure rating on it. This is also your fuel pressure regulator. So make sure you get the right filter for your vehicle and your engine. So this particular one is a 2.5 liter. It is a 4-bar. Just double check, make sure you got the right one. So now we're ready to set the new guy in. You can see one end's got the 2 fittings on it. The other end's got the 1 fitting. It's stamped out. That faces the front of the vehicle. The 2 go to the back. Obviously you've got the 2 lines in the back, the 1 in the front. Should be pretty straightforward. You can see this little standoff here. That is going to line up on the holder here. I don't know how well the camera's going to pick that up, but there's a little recess for it. So that's basically going to keep it aligned in its clamp and keep it from twisting and damaging the lines. So definitely make sure you have it set in all the way. I'm going to leave these caps on just for now until we're ready to hook everything up. But you can go ahead and slide this guy in, make sure it's set properly. Make sure everything's clean. That's why I left those clamps on there in the first place, and then you can just work them on. You'll kind of hear them click. Sometimes these can get kind of stuck, the clamp, so it might not click out. You might have to free it up. That one is stuck in the up position. Again, where this hook is going to come in handy, you can just get in from the inside with it off of the fitting and kind of pull it down to reset it, like that one. So it's sticking a little bit. But you definitely want to make sure these are clamped on, and like you heard it click that time, give it a little pull backwards, make sure they're on. Obviously these are running fuel, so we don't want any leaks. So properly connected fittings are a must. And it's the same with the front. You don't have a whole lot of room to play with because you got the chassis right here. When you're sliding the filter in, if you kind of slide this on first as you're sliding the filter in before you clamp it down, that might be a little easier for you. That way you're not worried about breaking the fitting. Heard it snap there. Give it a nice tug backwards to make sure it's set. Check all of them while you're under here. Now you will have fuel that would have drained out because you still have fuel in the lines. I like to clean all the fittings off. That way they're nice and clean, as well as when we hook the fuel pump circuitry back up, i.e. putting the fuse back in, and we go to cycle the pump and it builds pressure in the system. We can actually see if there's any fresh fuel coming out of the line that's causing a leak. So you always want to make sure this is going to be dry after you cycle the fuel pump. All right, well, that was a relatively painless process. Now that that's done, all we got to do is put the fuse back in the box here. Then we can make sure we're building fuel pressure. Before you run the car, I would put it to the on position, let the fuel pump pressurize the system. Check the fittings at the filter, make sure they're not dripping, not leaking, doing anything like that. Also, you bled the system up at the fuel rail on that Schrader valve. Give that a once over, make sure it's not leaking. And then you can go up and fire the engine, make sure everything's running properly. All right, you're all buttoned up, no leaks, everything's good. She runs good, she sounds good. I think we did a good job. That was how to install, or rather replace, your fuel filter on your Volkswagen or Audi. Like I said, most of them are the same, so that process is pretty much going to transfer over. Just make sure you get the right filter for your vehicle and your engine type. But other than that, be safe, have fun, and now that the engine's back running, you can go on your merry way. So thanks for watching. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what I did wrong, because there's always something that us YouTubers did wrong in our videos. Subscribe if you haven't already, and stay tuned for the next one. Oh, and obviously make sure you put your fuel cap back on, shut the door, put your wheel back on, and take it off jack stands safely. Torque your lug nuts, lug bolts rather. Yeah, have a nice day.